Have you ever thought about how our bodies are built? What if I told you there's an original architectural blueprint for our entire skeleton? It's this incredible substance that's both strong and flexible, giving us support, cushioning our joints, and even framing our growth. We're talking about cartilage, and in this explainer, we're going to dive deep into what makes this unique connective tissue so absolutely essential.
So here's our game plan. We'll start with the basics, what cartilage actually is and the amazing cells that build it. Then we'll get into the 3 different types to see their specialized jobs. We'll even look at how this stuff grows before we wrap it all up with a quick summary so you can tell them apart in a heartbeat. All right, so let's kick things off with the big question. What is cartilage, really? I mean, we all know it's in our nose and ears, right? But it's so much more than that. It's a really complex and specialized support system, and we're about to break down what makes it so unique and vital for our bodies. Okay, at its very core, cartilage is this tough connective tissue. It's made of living cells that are kind of floating in this dense, gel-like goo they create called the extracellular matrix. But did you notice that last part? This is the kicker. Cartilage has no blood vessels and no nerves. This is a huge deal, and it has massive implications for how cartilage lives and, more importantly, how it heals or doesn't. We'll definitely come back to that. So because of that really unique structure, cartilage has some pretty major jobs. It gives support to softer tissues like our windpipe. It acts as a super smooth, slick cushion in our joints so our bones don't just grind against each other. Ouch. And maybe the most incredible thing, it actually forms the first template for our entire skeleton when we're developing.
Now, let's put on our microscopic goggles and zoom way, way in. If you think of the cartilage matrix as the building, then who are the construction workers and who are the people living inside? Well, it's time to meet the 2 key cells that are responsible for the whole operation.
We've got 2 main players here, chondroblasts and chondrocytes. The easy way to think about it is that chondroblasts are the young, energetic builders. Their whole job is to pump out the proteins and fibers that make up that strong, gel-like matrix. Now, once a chondroblast has built its own little house and completely walled itself in, it matures and becomes a chondrocyte, the resident. And this image shows that transition perfectly. You can see a mature chondrocyte just chilling inside its protective little cavity, which is called a lacuna. At this point, its job switches from being a builder to being a maintainer. It's just keeping the surrounding matrix healthy. Pretty cool, right? It's literally living in the house it built for itself. Okay, so now that we know the basic components, let's look at the different designs. There are 3 main types of cartilage, and we're going to start with the most common one, the one that really serves as the foundational blueprint for the others, hyaline cartilage.
When you look at hyaline cartilage under a microscope, it has this really smooth, glassy appearance. In fact, hyalis is Greek for glass, so that makes perfect sense. But a key feature you got to look for in this image are those little clusters of cells. These are called isogenic groups, and they are a dead giveaway that you're looking at hyaline cartilage. They form when one chondrocyte decides to divide.
You'll find this smooth, bluish-white tissue all over, especially at the ends of your long bones where it makes your joints move smoothly. But this brings up a really important question. If cartilage has no blood vessels, how on earth does it get nutrients? Well, the secret is a special vascular sheath that surrounds it, called the perichondrium. All the nutrients have to slowly diffuse from that outer layer through the dense matrix just to reach the cells. So if hyaline cartilage is our standard all-purpose model, what happens when the body needs something a little more specialized, for a specific job? Well, that's where our next 2 types come into play, elastic cartilage and fibrocartilage. And honestly, just by looking at these 2, you can probably guess what they do. Over on the left, you've got elastic cartilage from the ear. It looks dense and kind of springy, right? It's packed with those dark elastin fibers. And on the right, look at that fibrocartilage. You can literally see these thick, wavy bundles of collagen which just screams strength. It all comes down to this, flexibility versus strength. Elastic cartilage, which is loaded with those elastic fibers, is all about being bendy. It lets your ear bend and then snap right back into shape. Fibrocartilage, on the other hand, is a total shock absorber. Its massive bundles of tough collagen are perfectly designed to resist compression in places that take a beating, like the discs in your spine or the meniscus in your knee. So we've seen the blueprints and the finished buildings, but how does cartilage actually get built in the first place? Well, its growth and maintenance are just as unique as the tissue itself, especially when you remember it doesn't have a direct blood supply. This process is called interstitial growth, which basically just means growth from within. It all starts in the embryo with these special stem cells called mesenchymal cells. They turn into our builder chondroblasts. As these guys secrete the matrix, they actually push each other apart. Then once they're trapped, they become chondrocytes. And from there, they can divide to form those isogenic groups we saw, expanding the whole thing from the inside out. And this brings us right back to that crucial point about blood supply, or, well, the lack of one. Since there are no tiny capillaries inside the cartilage, nutrients have to take a really long, slow journey. They have to diffuse from that outer perichondrium layer and soak all the way through the dense matrix just to finally get to the cells. And this slow, inefficient delivery system is exactly why cartilage damage is so notoriously difficult and slow to heal. Okay, wow, we have covered a lot of ground. So to pull it all together, let's do a quick side-by-side comparison. You can think of this as your cheat sheet for identifying these different tissue blueprints when you see them out in the wild. This table really nails the key differences. For hyaline, you're looking for that fine collagen and the classic isogenic groups. For elastic, look for those dark elastic fibers and a whole bunch of cells packed in tightly. And for fibrocartilage, the big giveaways are the super thick collagen bundles, cells arranged in nice neat rows, and, this is a big one, it's the only one that doesn't have a perichondrium. So let's wrap this up with a final thought to connect all these dots. We now know that cartilage is avascular. It has a terrible nutrient supply. A broken bone, on the other hand, is flooded with blood. So with that in mind, how does this explain why a torn meniscus in your knee, which is made of fibrocartilage, is an injury that heals so poorly and often needs surgery, while a broken bone can usually mend itself completely? It all comes back to that fundamental blueprint.